I think it's arguable whether there is fair pay in the NHS, and in particular whether there is fair pay for the groups of members the RCN represents among nurses and healthcare assistants. Ken and the debate this morning indeed widened out the issues that the Hutton Review is going to consider to looking at pay in the private sector as well. And it's relevant, I think, that there's still a significant pay gap between the female-dominated health professionals and male-dominated professionals requiring similar qualifications outside of health. So nurses, midwives, health visitors all earn substantially less than engineers, financial accounting technicians and architects. Care assistants earn marginally more than checkout assistants, but they still earn less than office assistants. And in our Royal College of Nursing evidence for the pay review body in 2007, which is the last evidence we submitted, we showed how nurses and midwives remain the lowest paid professionals across the whole of the public sector professional groups. And just some figures by way of illustration. Nurses and midwives earn 20% less than primary school teachers and 24% less than secondary school teachers. And if you look at it by age, teachers aged between 41 and 49 earn 31% and 39% more than nurses and midwives, which I think is quite actually a stark figure. If you open up the comparison to the police, it's actually even worse. So nurses and midwives with supervisory responsibilities earn less than police and teachers without any supervisory responsibilities, similar supervisory responsibilities. So that's looking at health, looking at nurses and midwives compared with groups outside of health in the private sector. But there's also some issues within the health and social services sector. Around 80% of the health and social care workforce is female. The gender pay gap, difference between what men and women earn in the health and social care workforce, is 32%, and that's second only to the banking and finance sector, GED, where the gap is something around 40%. So a huge gap, even within the health and social care sector, even where we have an equal pay for work of equal value pay system. So even though comparable jobs in the NHS are now valued and rewarded equally because of Agenda for Change, there is still more women working in more of the low-valued jobs like care assistants, and of course more women work part-time and or have breaks in their careers, which makes a difference to their overall earnings. And from our point of view in the RCN, low pay reflects the value that the wider society continues to put on women's jobs, and the problem is seemingly intractable and I think about to get worse because of the cuts that are going to impact on health, education quite soon. And the impact of low pay, of course, continues to be felt in retirement, and despite all the claims that there are in the media about gold-plated NHS pensions, the stark reality is that the average pension for men is currently £10,000 a year, but for women it's only £3,600 a year, and that's quite incredible if you think about some of the consideration of the bonuses that we were thinking about in the debates this morning. And there are other inequalities. Ken put up that chart showing the increase in chief executive salaries since 1999 and showed that that was 20%. And what that means in reality is that at the same time as nurses and all Agenda for Change NHS staff received a 2.75% increase in pay in 2008 and 9, NHS chief executives received an average pay increase of 6.9%. Now we know that some chief executives didn't receive any pay increase at all, and some were modest in their negotiations with their boards, so some must have earned even more than 6.9%. And the average chief executive of an NHS Foundation trust in 2008-9 received 157,500. By contrast, the average basic pay for nurses now is currently 29,200. So quite a big contrast there. And in fact, so how do we achieve fair pay? And Ken, we talked about the Hutton Fair Pay Review, and you highlighted that actually the 20-to-1 formula is not hugely relevant in a way in the public sector. We think it could generate even higher increases for some top earners in the NHS. The lowest basic salary in the NHS for Agenda for Change staff is 13,653. It's the lowest pay, the first pay point in the NHS, and 20 times that's 273,000, just about. We think a better way of restricting excessive senior salaries in the NHS would be to include all the high earners, including the chief executives and the directors, or the executive directors on boards, in NHS pay review body arrangements, because we think that transparency and pay determination and accountability of those who set pay in the public sector are important in ensuring fair pay. And I'd like to come back to that in the debate. I think that the way that pay is decided, who decides pay, is as important as some of the outcomes that we were looking at. A big issue for us now, a big issue for the NHS unions and other unions in the public sector, is retaining a national pay system. The white paper for the NHS in England clearly sets a direction of travel in terms of breaking up the national pay system and preferring a regional pay or a local pay system, and actually we're beginning to see some chief execs, some trust boards in the northwest right now begin to seek to try and move away from national pay arrangements, and there are 4 trusts in the northwest looking to restrict incremental progression, stop it, cap it, and looking at ways in which they can only allow incremental progression through measuring performance, and one performance measure will be sickness absence, which of course will challenge in terms of the Disability Discrimination Act. So women's jobs, what are women's jobs, continues to be an issue in the fair pay debate. Then there's a 2006 study which the Equal Opportunities Commission, as it then was, is quite interesting to look at. That showed that working in female-dominated occupations is more detrimental to pay levels than just being a woman, and that for every 10 percentage points greater the proportion of men in an occupation, hourly wage levels are boosted by 1%. So if you're in a male-dominated occupation, you do better. In our staff-side evidence, so across the 14 trade unions in the NHS, not just the RCN, in our evidence to the review body in 2007, we argued that it was reasonable to consider train drivers as a comparator for nurses, and our argument was not that nurses were likely to become train drivers, but rather that wages reflected the value placed on employees in society. Well, we didn't get very far with that argument. And as I said earlier, I think the austerity measures being adopted as a policy option to reduce public deficits across the EU will, in addition to reducing jobs and growth, impact disproportionately on women who make up the largest part of the public sector workforce. So, with the response to the financial crisis even adding more of a challenge, how do we change the view of women's work, which I think is at the heart of the fair pay debate. I look forward to the debate, and I look forward to Karen's contribution.